Hello, respective viewers. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome back to the channel once again. Anyway, this time I'm commenting about President Volodymyr Zelensky and his surprise visit to Vilnius, first of all, the capital of Lithuania. And he was obviously given a rapturous reception there. It wasn't a surprise to the Lithuanian government, but it was kept under wraps. The public weren't to know in case Russia would plan a nasty surprise or they'd try and kill him when he was crossing the border, crossing overland to Poland and making his way thence to Lithuania. So he met his Lithuanian opposite number, and who is President Gitanas Nausėda. So Lithuania is an erstwhile Soviet republic like Ukraine, and has a significant minority of its people who are ethnically and or linguistically Russian. Most ethnic Lithuanians over the age of 40 can speak good Russian. But unlike Ukraine, Lithuania joined the European Union way back in 2004, and it joined NATO around that time as well. So now Lithuania has been per capita the second most generous country in the world in terms of donating to Ukraine, donating about 1.7% of its GDP to the Ukrainians in armaments and simply in money. So they very much identify with the Lithuanian cause, so the Ukrainian cause, because the Lithuanians reckon should Russia's illegal war of unprovoked aggression be crowned with victory, then they'll move on against Lithuania. And they'll say, oh, the Russian ethnic minority, they're viciously persecuted. The Lithuanians who want freedom, they're Nazis. We have to rescue these Russians, and there's genocide being committed, and the Russian language has been downgraded, which it has been, because Lithuania, like every other country in the world, has the majority language as the official language, and Russian doesn't have official status. But there are schools there that still speak the Russian language. Of course, you're allowed to speak Russian, and there's this huge lie told by the Kremlin about Ukraine that has outlawed the Russian language, which is an outrageous, blatant, stupid lie. Zelensky himself is a native speaker of Russian, and indeed has spoken it in public on television broadcasts since the war began. There's no rule against that. I've met Ukrainians, even who are ethnically Ukrainian, in the United Kingdom, who have Russian as their first language, and indeed can't even speak Ukrainian, some of them. But that doesn't mean they're not Ukrainian. I'm not Irish. I'm still Irish. You know, a language is not a nationality. A nationality is not a language. Anyway, it's obviously for Lithuania to determine its language policy, not Russia. Should Lithuania determine the language policy of Russia? Of course not. Nobody suggests this. Obviously, the Russian Federation jealously guards its own independence and reacts with an extreme hissy fit if anyone dares point out the gross human rights abuses committed by Putin's Nazi regime against his own citizens. Anyway, Ukraine really needs to keep that flow of money and weapons coming, particularly as it's jeopardized for the European as a whole, the Hungarian veto being exercised there. There are rumors in the media that might be lifted. Hungary could veto various other things because there's a whole slew of countries queued up to join. Maybe the Hungarians will veto that instead, like Kosovo joining. But of course, Kosovo is unrecognized by 7 European Union member states. I don't see them getting in anytime soon for that reason, among others. The other thing is Ukraine needs to shore up flagging support for themselves. I mean, morally speaking, because people are sick and tired of the war. There's just this, they've been saturated with it, and a certain fatigue sets in, and it is falling in salience. They're distracted by the fighting in Gaza, by the Houthis attacking merchant shipping in Bab al-Mandab. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Other things, the upcoming election in the United States, economic problems, anything. And people are just gradually getting bored to tears of it. And it just becomes some background noise, just shrug it off, lost its power to shock like anything else, just grow accustomed to it. It's the new normal. But in a sense, this Ukraine war has been going on for almost 10 years, since March 2014, but not on a full scale. Russia's aims were more discreet, limited to the Luhansk and Donetsk regions rather than the entire country, as we see now. So then he was greeted there, and he spoke about cooperation on electronic warfare and drones. So they really need air defense. That's the biggest problem. He says that they're 70% successful. Well, impliedly 30% of Russian drones and so on are getting through. So now the aerial attacks on Ukraine have dissipated, which is why it wasn't too bad of a PR move for him to go abroad. Because had he left the country during a spate of these attacks, people say, "Oh, he's hightailing it out of there. He's running away. He's safe. We're in danger." But even the Russian stocks of drones and missiles and rockets and so on are running low. They have to husband them for another big, huge salvo. So he received a hero's welcome from Lithuanian people in Lukiškės square, right in the center of Vilnius. Remember, Lithuania was the very first country to declare its independence from the Soviet Union, and the Lithuanians haven't forgotten how they were invaded, illegally occupied. Tens of thousands of their intellectuals and their politicians taken to slave labor camps in Siberia, were very, very few emerged alive, some of them murdered, massive scale terror by the Soviet state. And the Soviet state had the temerity to say they requested admission to the Soviet Union, and obviously reminding the Soviet state that Lithuania was brought back into the Russian Empire by collusion with Nazi Germany. Anyway, so Putin is someone who'd like to take over Lithuania again. Zelensky then flew on to Estonia, and really the same story, another quantum Soviet republic, which joined NATO in the early noughties and acceded to the European Union in 2004. A very, very prosperous country, and they both are a riposte to Russia, what Russia could have been. These are countries with like no oil and gas, minimal natural resources, tiny countries, nobody else speaks their language, and yet they're richer than Russia. How? Good governance, rule of law, a healthy investment climate. Your money won't be robbed. The courts are genuinely independent. There is a free media. There's very little corruption. They've cracked on bribery and that kind of stuff. There's security of tenure of your property. They have real elections. It's all free and fair. There is probity. There is integrity to this system. So your property is safe as the Bank of England. And imagine Russia, if they had all that, plus their oil, gas, coal, metals, all the hydropower, solar power, and so on, wind power they could have. Should be the richest country in the world by far. But obviously Putin and his cronies have wrecked it all and started all these wars which have bankrupted them. So same story in Estonia is Zelensky is going to thank them profusely for their support and assure them he's no ingrate, but really we need more, and like now, okay, air defense and so on. You can give me a lot of your stuff because come on, you're not going to be attacked. You're in NATO. We don't have that aegis over us. And also just fund us. We need 6 billion euros a month, simply to sustain operations, to pay salaries, to carry out essential maintenance on roads, railways, the electric grid, everything like that. And by the way, the electric grid is gradually being connected to that of Romania and other European Union countries. So if it's taken out by Russia, that's not really, if they take out the power stations, it's not going to be too much of a problem. It's less and less of a problem, which I suppose Russia tried really hard last year, not tried very much this winter. Next winter may not even try at all because it'll be so ineffectual. And indeed, Zelensky is going on to Latvia. Is he going on to other European countries after that? I don't know. Or is he returning home to Ukraine, which is, of course, a European country? Right. Thank you so much for watching my channel. So please make sure you donate on PayPal and subscribe on Patreon to see thousands of articles and videos behind the paywall. All right. Toodle pip.